Well, just before I go to talk on about my calling, as I said in 1993 in the February I started going out with this young lady. Well, in 1992 I've been put on a 1 year contract, renewable each year. And there was a recession here in 92, 93, and the sheep industry, I was a shepherd working with 1,300 sheep, was in a bit of a lull and not making much money at all. I was living in a tight cottage on the farm that went with the job, and living on the farm, and just local to the flock. And then what happened is in the summer, in about June time, I was made redundant from the farm. Now could have gone shepherding elsewhere possibly. There weren't many jobs about shepherding at that time anyway, but I didn't want to leave this young lady, so I wanted to stay. She lived near Guildford and I was near Aldershot, just down the road. So I stayed in a bedsit after that. I lived in a bedsit because I had to move out the house as well when I was made redundant. So she got me a job working for her dad. His dad was contractor, building contractor, grounds work, with diggers and stuff like that, and he employed labourers to do labouring. So from midsummer 93 I started labouring on the building sites for her dad, and it was hard graft, and I didn't like it, and you were used like a dog's body and expected to do jobs that needed two people to do, so I already had a slightly bad back and it made it quite a bit worse. So that went on for 6 months, and the Christmas of 93 we went away to Ireland because her dad was Irish and that, and we had a lovely time. And when I come back I really was fed up with that job, and in the new year of 94, the first week of 94, I wrote off to 3 local councils because I knew some of them might have tractor drivers working for them, grass mowing and mowing the verges on the side of the roads and etc. So I wrote off to them, and 2 days later the manager of the grounds maintenance department at Guildford Borough Council in Guildford phoned up and asked me to come for interview. So I went for interview the next day and was given the job. The thing is that he took me on to become a tractor driver there because they had 4 tractor drivers, and one of them, the one that done the side flail verge mowing and hedge trimming and stuff, and some digger work in the winter months, was due to retire in about a year and a half. And that in the meantime he said you can just go out with one of the mowing crews and just do mowing around the council estates. I was there the first week and I met this really nice man, Peter, and he was liked to joke, and he was a jolly person. I soon got to know him over the next few weeks, and he was amazing, and he was so worldly wise, and so many people went to him for advice, and I could see something in him that I did not see in many, but I had it myself. He had a great conscientiousness, and you knew if you was a friend with a person like that, you could trust them with your life. Anyway, I'd only been there just about 3 months, and it was just springtime by then, and the tractor driver that was a year and a half away from retirement, I was helping him put the flail mower on, and he said, I've got to go to the council doctor this morning because I might get early retirement. And he went off, and about an hour later he come back and he said, this tractor's all yours now, I'm retiring today. So this was destiny. Father God helped me to be on Guildford Borough Council to meet Peter. I didn't know this, but it was my destiny, and our paths were helped to cross. So a second time my path had been helped to cross somebody, first this girl and then Peter, and other opportunities in my life before becoming a shepherd in the first place and being in the right place to be one on Goodwood Estate. So destiny was there, and I became a tractor driver. I absolutely loved driving the tractor. It was just up my street. I was working a lot less hours than I did on the farm, no weekends for the same money. So it was great, and you know, I'd achieved what I wanted to achieve in my work, and now I could relax more and you know, just enjoy my work. And you know, my ambition to achieve in a career, you know, I didn't have anymore, and I'd had my family and everything, so I was happy with in that job. Really great. And quite often, when there wasn't much tractor driving work, which there was in the summer, but in the winter months, we'd go out with Peter, and you know, I'd become really friendly with him. Many others went to him for advice because he had great wisdom, and he took me under his wing, and he was coaching me. And he was a forester on the Guildford Borough Council. He'd done forestry work, but he'd done a sit on and ride mowing job during the summer, and his nickname was Greengrass. But he had a little four-wheel drive sit on mower that he'd go up the big steep banks on and do all that sort of work. And it was a, you know, a fun person to be around. He was jolly, you know, had a good sense of humour, and very worldly wise. And you know, I was happy to be his friend, and we became good friends. And you know, I had very few friends in my life because I didn't want fair weather friends, and he was not that. He was a true friend, and things progressed onwards from there. And then I'll go on to my calling now in this second video. So thank you for watching. Bless you. Watch the next video. Love and light. Yep.